and welcome back. This is the Leasing Highway presented by the Apartment Association of Metro Denver. And this is season 3, our first episode of season 3, and we couldn't be more excited to be back. The Leasing Highway is a podcast focused on the heartbeat of our industry, the apartment industry, and just really wanting to share the voices of people making an impact, making a difference, and hearing their stories, sharing their voices with you. I am Karen Gladney, one of the hosts.
And I'm your other host, Ian Andrews. And today we're super excited to be joined by Judy Bellack of the Michelson Found Animal Foundation and Jamin Harkness of the management group, two spectacular guests. So super excited to have you. Thank you guys for taking the time. And I'll toss it over to you first, Jamin, to give a little intro, a little bit about yourself, and then we'll toss it to Judy.
Hey, well, thank you so much for having me. My name is Jamin Harkness, and I started in the industry in 1995 as a groundskeeper. And I kept telling the leasing office I think I could rent apartments. And so they gave me a chance. And from there, I just kind of moved on up a little bit and moved to assistant and then a manager, then marketing, then a regional. And now 6 years ago, we started the management group, which owns and manages apartments in the Southeast. Let's see, I'm a dog lover. I mean, I love my doggy. His name is Jax. You might hear him a little bit, but I didn't ask permission to do this, Ian or Karen, but I'm just going to show you guys. That's my doggy, Jax. And he's a 130-pound golden doodle. So he's a big boy. And I am a parent of a 14-year-old. I've been married for 21 years. That's about me.
Wonderful.
Judy, how about you?
Wow, I have to follow that. Well, first of all, thank you, Ian and Karen, for having me. I'm excited about doing this with my buddy, Jamin. I am not going to tell you when I started in the industry because it was long before 1995. And most of my career in the industry was with a couple of the large ILS companies, actually the Apartment Guide before there was such thing as the ILS, right? And for the past 5 years, I've had my own consulting firm. I work largely with startup tech companies in the space. But more importantly, I'm also the industry principal for Michelson Found Animals Foundation, which is just an incredible organization, nonprofit that does a lot of things in a lot of different spaces, including pet welfare. And really in this industry is evangelizing the message that pet inclusivity is really a great thing for the industry. I've been married for 20 years. I have a 26-year-old and a 32-year-old stepson and daughter, 4 grandchildren, 3 incredible little Shiba Inus, and not to be outdone, here is one of them, Sadie, asleep. She's my screensaver, but they can't be in here because they would be making far too much noise because I would not be paying attention to them. So,
well, thank you both for those introductions. And to let everybody know, this is new for us. Anybody who's watched other episodes of the Leasing Highway know that we've usually just had one guest. So this is our first time having and being honored with 2 guests. And we're also focusing in on specifically one subject matter today, and that is pet friendliness. So with that context, Judy, we want to start out with you and really a 2-part question. The first being, how would you summarize the overall state of pet friendliness in the multifamily industry? And then what are the financial and operational benefits of being pet friendly? 2 parts. And I know that this is a hot topic and everybody is discussing it at every conference I feel like that I go to. So definitely share your thoughts with us on those 2 questions.
Sure. And it is, I would say it's a multi-layered question, so I'll try to be concise. The first part, define pet friendliness in the industry right now, or the state of pet friendliness. I would say that there is a little bit of a disconnect right now between owners and operators of rental housing and consumers of rental housing. If you ask most owner operators, if you take a look at their advertising, for example, I would say well over 85% would call themselves pet friendly. They allow some form of pet, a cat, a dog, maybe both, maybe some other animals. But if you ask consumers, there's a disconnect. A lot of consumers do not feel that the industry is pet friendly. And this is primarily due to the breed and weight restrictions that are pretty standard out there in the industry. The second part of the question, there really are, when you start peeling back those layers of the onion, there are so many benefits to operators, both financial and operational. And I'm going to stick to the really high level ones. The obvious ones would be, of course, any pet deposits, pet fees, pet rent that are collected. And the more pets you have on site, the more you can do that. But the not so obvious financial benefits are going to be when you start looking at retention rates, connectedness of community, and those do translate to the bottom line. And I feel quite certain that Jamin will speak to that later.
Absolutely. Well, Jamin, yeah, I wanted to throw a question your way here. Being on the management side, describe the level of pet friendliness in your portfolio, and what are those business benefits you see from being so pet friendly?
So I just have to tell you, this happened for us about 2.5 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. And we just realized that we love pets. It was during the pandemic, and we had some lease ups, and that just still happened during the pandemics. And we started allowing people to bring pets to work. And we just realized we love them. And so our policies are, and we'll get to why we got to these policies in a little bit, but we allow all weight limits, all breeds, and here's the big one, we do no pet rent. And there's going to be owners and operators shaking their head and managers saying, you know what, that's just such low hanging fruit that you can get. But we believe that not charging pet rent, we feel like there's fee fatigue. You guys know what I'm talking about. There's trash fees and package room fees and pest control we've added now. And so we feel like if we throw on pet rent, it's just one more fee. And we believe it's offset, and we've proven it over the past 2 years that 80% of our pet owners renew their lease. And I'll take that over any $30 a month or 10 or 20 or whatever. I'll take that any day because I can quantify vacancy loss and turnkey cost.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I remember, I feel like it was 20 years ago now when the Dumb Friends League, we're in Denver, so it was the Denver Dumb Friends League, came and spoke to one of our networking luncheons and just talked about the benefits of having pets in apartments, and they spoke to that. So it is really interesting to hear what y'all have done, Jamin, and that the pandemic really stimulated it. Judy, we've got another two-parter for you. I'm going to start with the first part first, and then after you've answered that, I'll layer on the second. But what are some of the ways that operators can increase their pet friendliness and really bridge that disconnect that you mentioned earlier?
Again, a really, really great question. And you look at what Jamin has done with lifting all breed and weight restrictions. And we know that that may be difficult for all operators to do. And certainly they wrestle with things like residents being fearful of dogs, fearful of large dogs. But there really is, the benefits of doing this so far outweigh the detractors of not doing it. And if you look at, for example, what Jamin has done, and I'm gonna go back to something he said just a moment ago about not charging pet rent and all of those various fees. If you look at some of the research that's out there, and some of it is our research, the Pet Inclusive Housing Report, the average damages caused by a pet is under $300. And the average percent of units that even see damages from pets is under 9%. So there are a lot of misconceptions that are out there. And so as owners and operators go down this path of saying, okay, how can I be more pet inclusive? They absolutely can take a look at their policies. How can I be more inclusive of pets? And another good reason to do this is if you look at the AKC top 10 breed list and throw the average policy in the industry at it, which would be a weight limit of 40 or 50 pounds and about 15 different restricted breeds. Of that top 10 list, 6 of those dogs would not be able to live in an apartment community. So it just makes sense that they move toward more pet inclusivity and open up their renter pools. In terms of other things that they can do operationally, and again, I feel like Jamin is going to speak so well to that. There are so many different resources out there now, technology resources that can help operators deal with more pets on site, more pet waste on site, differentiating between service animals and ESAs, and make it really, really easy for operators and take that onus off of their leasing staff.
And can I jump in and just say, Judy, talking about the pet restrictions, if you told me I couldn't bring my fur baby Jax to an apartment community, I wouldn't move there. I just wouldn't. I mean, I love my dog, and I bet you there's some people on this podcast that love their dog also, that you're just not going to separate your dog to move to a community. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, they're absolutely not. And if I can just piggyback on something you said there, when having come from an ILS background, right, and advertising and marketing, it really is tough for consumers to get to the knowledge of where they can take their dog. A community may advertise that they're pet friendly, that they accept, 1 to 2 animals in an apartment, but getting any more information about that online, for example, can I take my German Shepherd? Can I take my 80-pound dog? Requires a phone call to the apartment community. And so I'm going to use this platform to really encourage marketers to take a look at that, because it's just like Jamin said, no one's going to say, wow, this is a really gorgeous apartment. I'm going to get rid of my dog so I can move here. It's just not going to happen.
We call them furry family members for a reason, right? They're family members. Judy, could you talk about some of the obstacles, real or perceived, that operators face?
Yeah. And the very first one that always comes up in conversations is insurance, right? Liability. Oh no, we can't do that because my insurance won't cover us because they have restricted breeds. The fact of the matter is that used to be really, really common, but it is much less so now. And it really harkens back to decades ago when the CDC put out a report on dangerous breeds. And within about 15 years, they reversed themselves completely because the data was incredibly flawed. And so insurance companies picked up on that originally. And then you still have some legacy policies out there that do have breed restrictions. But, Jamin's experience, the experience of so many operators I've talked to is that when they've checked with their insurance companies, they don't have breed restrictions, or they may have some guidelines about how they recommend you bring additional animals into your property, but there is no additional cost.
Yeah, that's super, super interesting, because I feel like it's just one of those things that in the industry we've just always done, and no one's kind of gone back to really cross-check it, except for you, of course, Jamin, who has done their due diligence. But it's just something that this is our aggressive breed list. We keep going with it, and the reality, I think, is we spend as a industry spend so much energy trying to fight for that pet rent, trying to fight the breed restrictions, trying to fight the service animals and that whole side of things, that it just ends up creating this negative connotation when we, on the marketing and development side, we're pouring money into trying to be that pet friendly community, and all these restrictive policies are getting in the way. So it's very fascinating. Well, I've definitely have some more questions. I have another one to throw your way here, Jamin, but want to take a quick break, and let's get back to it on the other side.
Okay.
Meet Drew. She's a photographer living in Chicago and is currently looking for a new apartment. She's found a few places she likes, but isn't sure which one is the best fit. That's when Drew discovered RentGrata. RentGrata allowed Drew to talk to Ashley, a resident of the building she was considering. After talking to Ashley, Drew knew it was the right place for her, so she decided to move in. Today, Drew found a new home and Ashley made some referral money. But with RentGrata, it doesn't stop there. When this conversation data is combined with AI machine learning intelligence, RentGrata can provide new insights that allow property managers to get a better sense of what renters want. And that means a better renter experience for all. Welcome your residents. Reach them with RentGrata.
Welcome to your beautiful new apartment home here at Gables Point 14. As you can see, we're featuring this beautiful one-bedroom den.
Welcome back, everyone. So when we left there, we were talking a little bit about, eliminating those breed and weight restrictions, and curious for Jamin, for you, what really compelled you to really get rid of those, and then along with that, what types of policies and fees and procedures did you really put in place to help manage your pet owners and that pet population?
All right, so you ready for a story, Ian and Karen?
Yes.
Let's hear it.
All right, so we found ourselves a few years ago being the police about what is a service animal, what is a support animal, and like I know many of my colleagues and peers in this industry has done. And I had a manager call me and say, look, we have this letter from this guy. He wants to bring his pit bull, and we looked it up, and it's from this was an Atlanta-based property, and they said it's from a radiologist in Hawaii that he's never physically seen, and it says that in the letter, but the doctor believes he really needs this animal. And of course, we're like, what? Well, no, of course not. That's silly. That's crazy. So we said no. And then what happened? Well, they said lawyer, and they said, you know what? That's fine. You're violating my rights and all that. We said, well, wait, let's just talk about it before we start going down that road. And so we talked to our lawyer, which by the way cost me $350 an hour. Okay, and then they wrote a letter, and then my lawyer had to write a letter, and back and forth, $1,500, for me to be required to accept this pet. And we just kind of scratched our head, and we said, why? Why are we fighting? What do I really, really want to prevent keeping these pets? I mean, what's the worst thing that could happen? And why do we have these policies? That's what really prompted me, Ian, is I was like, why do we even have this? And so we looked, and we called our insurance company, and we asked them about it, and they're like, we never told you any policies. And we're like, well, but wait. And so I've been the keeper of these breed restrictions for years on all of our different lease iterations. Whenever we have that pet addendum in our lease, that says the breeds that are not restricted, there's a whole section in it. There's a place in Blue Moon lease and the NAA lease where you can go type the breed restrictions in there. And so when we learned that there wasn't that, I came to my owners and I said, look, I had a plan in place. I had just recently gone to NAA, and I met a company called Pet Screening. And I just kind of remembered what they did, and I wasn't sure how much it cost, so I called them. And they screen your pet, and you get a FIDO score, not a FICO score. And the one thing that stuck out whenever I met them at a trade show was that they said, we have our own legal team that'll handle all of your service requests, all of your service animals and support animal requests. We'll do it for you. You don't have to worry about it. And by the way, the whole service is free. The resident pays $20 to get their pet screened, and even non-residents have to go through and sign an affidavit that they're not going to get a pet unless they go through screening. I mean, and so that was one step that we did to make it responsible, because I proposed, why don't we make it wide open? And so I had a few steps that we did. If it's okay, if I have time, I want to tell you a few steps of things that we did. So the first thing is we rolled out pet screening. It's free to the community, and it's such a benefit. They make the residents and prospects upload shot records and photos, and then they give you a score based on if it's a puppy, or is it an older dog, or different kinds. And we use that FIDO score to determine the pet fee. Every pet pays the same deposits in our communities. It's a $200 deposit, and so we just have a $300, $400, or $500 fee based on the FIDO score. We also rolled out we rolled out poo prints. That's the DNA, where when a new doggy moves into our community, or when it took us a year to roll this out, because we had to do it with all the renewals too, they bring their dog in, and we give the pet owner a little kit, and they have to swab the cheek of their dog. And then we send it in, and it registers DNA. And so that if we find pet waste in the community, and let me tell you, my people are very vigilant about looking for it, they send it in, match it up to that DNA, and the first fine is $350, and each fine after that's $500. And I got to tell you, who really loves that it's not, it's the non-pet owners, because they know they're moving into a community that's not going to have, pet waste everywhere. That's just two of the things I told you about. I told you about pet screening. I told you about poo prints. We also, our insurance said we would recommend that, because they know that we are really strict about renters insurance, and they said we'd recommend that you require all of your residents and renewals to have an animal liability endorsement waiver on their policy. And when we looked at the policy that we offered as a community, our preferred policy, it was already there. And we find that in 85% of the cases, it's already there. So we just wanted to make sure that we have that, and we do double check that. We also came up with some rules about in the handbook, that the resident handbook that everybody signs when they move in, so that if there's any issues or lunging at each other or any pet fights or anything like that, we have a 3 strikes and you're out policy, and we have a and we follow that. So when I brought this to the owners, I said it's not only the owners I have a responsibility to, I also have a responsibility to the non-pet owners also. And then for the pet owners, now that we're bringing in more and more animals, we started looking at our dog parks. One community didn't even have a dog park, but we had two tennis courts sitting there with no one doing anything on it and cracking. So we converted one of those to a big dog park. And I got to tell you, dog parks in my communities now, and we're developing 8 right now. 4 of them are already coming out of the ground. I say this in every development meeting every week, and I say dog parks are used more than the swimming pool. They are. When you love your pets, so you really have to. I have the elements and the things where they jump and all that, but here's a few things I do in my dog parks. I provide shade for the dog owners. We provide benches. We have water for a water bowl, for the dogs. Sometimes it's just a hose bib out there and all of that. And then we constantly are changing the mulch. Also, we do pet events. We advertise our pet events on our social media, and we're a very welcoming office. It's part of our job interviews. When we interview people, we're like, look, you got to love pets if you work with us. Okay. I mean, because we encourage people to come in and use our offices. I always say that our leasing offices have been these museums that nobody comes and uses, but we bring people in. We want them to come in, bring your pet. We have a toy box in the office for the pets. You should see these dogs playing with it. You see people walking around our communities and the dogs pulling to the office because they know they're going to get a treat and get some love and and get to play with the toy there in the office. So that's my responsibility to the pet owners. So I try to take care of my non-pet owners, my owners, and the pet owners with this policy. I try to be very intentional about rolling this out.
It certainly sounds like it. I love the intent behind it and your plan too, Jamin. You've definitely mapped it out, and you mentioned the dog parks, and you mentioned the puppy toy chest and whatnot. Are there, amenities are a big draw, and people talk about them all the time. Are there any other amenities that y'all have implemented or that you've seen that you think are great, you'd like to, or just really commend others for implementing them?
Okay, you're not being sponsored by like the pet washing stations, right?
No.
Okay, good. I love them. I think they're cool. And I sometimes when we do lease ups, I like to go spend a day on site, and I like to do the tours also to walk in a leasing consultant shoe and see what it's like. And I love it when I get to go open up the dog spa, and show it to them. But honestly, our experience has been just not a lot of people use them. And then for me to roll them out on another community, I've just recently gone through the exercise. And I mean, those things are expensive to roll those out. You either build them custom or you pay $10,000 for a stainless steel sink. So I got to tell you, the dog park enhancement is what I do more than anything. And it's not, and I do it over time, and I roll it out with CapEx because I keep reminding people this is just as important, if not more, than the pool, because we have, like, for instance, at many of our communities on Wednesdays, yappy hour, what's the first thing you're going to do if you're a dog owner? When you come home, you're going to take your dog out, and then they will pull towards the dog park. So why am I not standing out there handing out margaritas? And so we put up shade sails, and like I said earlier, we have benches, we have water there. We do pop-up splash pads where sometimes we'll just go out and we'll connect up a splash pad for the dogs to play in, and we advertise that, get some good social media on that. We also have outdoor pet toys. I was at a community in Florida a couple of weeks ago, and I saw a dog carrying around this like ball thing in its mouth, and the owner's like, I'm sorry, I'll bring it back after he lets go of it, but it came from your pet park. I'm like, keep it. I mean, we love that. That's exactly why it's there. We do every single year, twice a year, we refresh the mulch that's in our dog parks. I know in Florida we have to have grass down there, so we're always hosing that down to make sure it's taken care of. And we're And then also, we are using our social media to invite prospects to bring their dogs on the tour. We invite them to come out and see if your dog, my dog's name is Jax. If someone said, hey, why don't you bring Jax with you to see if, he's going to live there too. Why don't you see if Jax likes it? I mean, I immediately love that leasing consultant. I love that community.
That's
such
amazing.
a good point. I mean, they're such a part of your experience, and being able to bring them into the fold is huge. That's so smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's yeah. I mean, really, I think, from step one saying, come into the leasing office with your dog is just an amazing idea that really shows you're pet friendly and not really the gatekeeper that you're really so often seen as for those dogs, but rather welcoming them into.
Can I tell you my trick I use with the ILSs? Judy may smile at this. Do we have time for that?
Yeah.
Okay, so like how on all of our websites, our photos that are on our websites they're the same photos, usually in the same order, that push to the ILSs. So if I go look at the front page of my website and then I go look at apartments.com or Apartment Guide or whatever, it's going to be the same photos. It's called your ILS push. Well, I put a sticker. I import the photo into Canva, and we just make a little badge or a banner or something on the photo that says pet friendly, no breed or weight limits, no pet rent. And we put that on the photo, so it ends up being on the first page of all the ILSs too. And of course, we brag about our pets. We have Pet of the Week on our social media. One of our biggest events that people love for some reason is the pet photo booths. We'll set up, and there's some companies that actually will help you do that too. But we do Christmas and Easter, and you put some bunny ears on your dog, and you're going to love that. And then we do toy scavenger hunts throughout the communities also.
Wow, that's impressive.
Jamin is such a wealth of information. I have to say, if the Michelson Found Animals Foundation could model how to make your community pet inclusive with intention and in the exact right way, it is what TMG has done. And Jamin, I mean, just really phenomenal.
Well, and hearing your passion behind it, Jamin, honestly, culture for a company starts at the top, and your vigor and positivity positive feeling towards all animals. I mean, you can just, no wonder it trickles down, and no wonder your leasing teams are inviting pets on tour and letting people keep the ball from the pet park. I mean, that's just, what a great message to infuse, and you can feel it. I've gone into communities that are very pet friendly, and I don't have a pet, but there is a different energy when there's a positive feeling in a community, whether around pets or any of their, policies, camaraderie, all of that. So you're instilling that.
We have two other things, if we have time, I wanted to tell you about that we do, is that if an existing resident adopts an animal, and they show us the papers and they adopt it from a legitimate place, and they save an animal, then we waive the pet fee. Absolutely. On that. And then also, when we rolled out 5 new benefits last year at our company, which I'm only going to tell you one that's pet related, for our team members, because we're always trying to figure out how to keep our team members happy and wanting to work with us, is that we changed our bereavement policy. I had a team member whose mother passed, and they had 3 days to go grieve their mother. That's not enough time, so we changed that to 2 weeks if it's immediate family members. And then we changed it for extended family members to 1 week. But guess what else we added? If it's your pet, we give you 3 days.
Oh, wow. So wonderful.
Yep.
That's so wonderful, because they are family members.
Yes.
And often they've been with you for 10 or 12 or 15 years.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's
amazing.
That is amazing. Well, let's take one more quick break, and then I have some just final questions for you, Judy, here, just on the future of pet friendliness. Welcome back. So yeah, Judy, for you, what's the future of pet friendliness and multifamily? What's that look like?
Yeah, I love that question. I actually think the quick, easy answer to that is that the consumers are going to drive that. When you look at the United States, nearly 70% of households in the US own a pet, and a huge number of those pets are dogs and cats. So I think that what we're going to see, just as, when you look back a couple of decades, most apartment communities in the US didn't allow pets at all. And so we've seen a big shift in that. And like we were saying earlier, a lot of companies have sort of, set those policies and forgotten them. And so now you're starting to see some movement again and conversation. And again, the consumer will drive that. I think that the industry is just way too smart to pass on the opportunity of being able to open up their units to, more people. And quite honestly, it's like, another owner said to me, and Jamin, I think you've said this to me too, pet owners make really great residents. They tend to be friendly, they're outgoing, they are out there with their pets all the time, and they create such a sense of community. So I think that the industry will really get their heads wrapped around that. And especially when they look at the data, right? There is no data to support that a particular dog breed is dangerous. There are absolutely dangerous dogs, primarily because they're irresponsible pet owners. And I think that we can all do a great job of making sure that people are held accountable for their pets on site so that we don't have irresponsible pet owners. Now, the second part of the question was,
yeah, what are the consequences of not embracing this trend?
Well, I think right now, I'm going to take it kind of from the opposite side. Right now, there's a huge competitive advantage to embracing the trend. And so you see companies like Jamin with TMG or Oculus Realty or MAA, one of the biggest owners in the country, absolutely and fully embracing pets. And it is absolutely giving them a competitive advantage. I think that competitive advantage is going to continue for quite some time because, things have to reach a tipping point, and we are a long way from the majority of communities in the US being fully embracing of pets. And so I think that, again, when you start looking at people like TMG, other companies, what they've done, the technology resources that are out there to help them do this, the financial implications of becoming more pet inclusive. And even though there are some costs to making your community more pet friendly with bark parks, with different things that you can do, the upside of that is so tremendous. You get residents who stay longer. One of the other stats from our report is that a typical pet owner will stay 21% longer in a community than a non-pet owner. So that translates to higher lifetime value for a consumer. And there go my dogs. It translates to lower vacancy loss, better retention, which makes stronger communities.
Yeah, such an important point and subject matter. And just wanted to open it up as we close. Just Jamin, anything for you first that we haven't asked that you want to add on this topic? And Judy will.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to what Judy was saying, and I want to say this to the other management companies out there. Go ahead and keep denying the dogs because I open my doors wide open. And you know what? We really, really get a lot of people that come in and they're just miffed at the comps because they won't take their fur baby. And we're inviting them in. We truly invite them in for tours. We even replace model pictures with pictures of dogs and things. I mean, we really, really try to show that we love animals. You can't go wrong loving animals.
Yeah. Puppies and babies, right?
Puppies and babies. Yeah. Don't kick somebody's puppy. They're not going to like it at all. It's interesting because I think it's like so many different things in multifamily. If we look at trends in multifamily over the decades, and I can do that, I've been around for decades, you'll see something start to slowly get some traction. And then all of a sudden it becomes a landslide. And I think that we'll see this with pets as well, because there are just so many people in the country who have pets at an increasing rate. You know, the pandemic is one of the things that absolutely spurred this. You know, there were so many more adoptions. Shelters across the country had such low census counts because not only were pets getting adopted, but fewer people were having to sacrifice their pets because everybody was staying put, right? Yeah. And so, you know, the happy benefit of industries like multifamily embracing pets is that it's going to be so much better for people and so much better for pets. And we're going to see fewer pets in shelters, and we're going to see happier families who can stay with their pet.
Oh, well, what a great note to end on. You two have been absolutely fabulous. We are so appreciative. And I'm going to speak for you both. I would imagine there's a lot of people that will listen and that are out there listening, because this is such a discussion topic. And with your experience, I'm going to just say, ping these guys on LinkedIn because I know they're both on LinkedIn, and ask your questions from their experiences, because that's so, I know it's so helpful to just reach out to your peer group and have those discussions. So reach out to Judy and Jamin. I know they'll be more than happy to answer your questions. And again, thank you, everyone. Thank you to the Apartment Association, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Leasing Highway. Have a great week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye. Thank you.